So here we are back for number 6, item number 6. This one is, you have a tendency to apologize too often.
Yeah, and all that mess and the, oh, does he love me? Oh, it's too good, blah, blah, blah. On top of all that mess, what I found was I was constantly telling him that I was sorry. I was sorry that he was having to deal with the chaos. I was sorry he was having to deal with drama. I was sorry that I just felt like everything was a mess, that all I did was drag a big, huge mess behind me, and now it was like his mess. So I was constantly telling him I'm sorry.
Yeah, and when we first talked about this, I was like, well, I don't feel like you told me you were sorry all the time. I didn't feel like there was this constant apology going on. But she did say all the time, like, oh, you shouldn't have to deal with this. I feel like you're better off without me. You don't deserve this mess all the time. And the thing was, is I kind of was a little bit insulted by that, because that was a little bit of a form of pushing away. You know, I love you. I care about you, and I want to be part of your life, and so, you know, your mess is mine. I want to be part of it. This is something we're going to work through together. So it's not this baggage that I'm dealing with. It's just part of what we're going through, and when you go through something, there's a beginning and there's an end, and you work through it together. It's just the way that it is.
The stuff in the middle has just been outrageous, though, and that's us, as you know, previous doormats, constantly apologizing. All I could think to myself was, I married an a-hole. He didn't marry an a-hole. That, you know, that's my mess. That's my garbage. That's my baggage, and it would always make me feel bad. Because again, mentioned this a million times, I was so, and still am so incredibly grateful that I'm in a healthy, loving relationship. And the last thing I wanted to think was that I brought in unhealthy things, that I brought in bad vibes, that I brought in, you know, toxic BS from Mommy Dearest and, you know, that a-hole. So it just made me feel bad. It brought on a lot of guilt. So,
but yeah. I guess the important thing is that in a normal relationship, the other person accepts you for who you are completely, and they take that on. Now, it's not to say you have the right to dump yourself on them and like, okay, my life's a mess and you got to fix it. That's not what's going on here, obviously. But it's supporting, it's accepting. This isn't like, oh, that's a bad mark, I don't want to deal with this. So okay, then that brings you on kind of to the next thing, which I kind of mentioned, which is this idea that your significant other's better off without you. You'll go through thinking this a lot.
Well, yeah. I nothing but guilt, nothing but thinking, here's this wonderful person, and now his life is literally filled with there was drama every day. Now, don't forget, I left that joker that I was married to for 24 years, but I was still dealing with Mommy Dearest. She stepped right into his place and picked up where he left off. Until things, you know, went to hell with her, I was dealing with her basically on a daily basis. And it was nothing but drama. It was nothing but arguing with her. It was nothing but me under constant stress, because I was still running the business at the time, which I could have done standing on my head if it weren't for her, and dealing with her. She was just so incredibly toxic.
She was bad.
And all of that just poured in here day after day. I got rid of one, and then the other one took over, and I just felt awful. All I could think was his life was fine until I came along with this mess, and now he's got drama every day. And nobody deserves that. Nobody needs that. You guys all know what I'm talking about. So why would you impose that on somebody that you love? So that was how I felt all the time.
And it wasn't like imposing, because back to what I said before, you accept the person for how they are. And like, you know, I feel like I grew up in a normal household. Mom and dad were married. They didn't get divorced. They stayed together all the way till the end. My dad still did not like his mother-in-law, and she would come over, and there was drama, and there was talking, and there was shenanigans, and so it was part of the normal thing.
On a normal level.
Right. But that being said, I'm not unused to it. It wasn't like this is a terrible thing, and my life has improved dramatically when we got together. Everything got better because of her. For me, I felt like everything was complete. These pieces I was missing are now here. This is it. This is great. You know, and this is just part of what comes along with it, and that's fine because she's fantastic. And so it's not a burden for me the way she thought it was. I just was there to be supportive and try and help her through it the best that I thought that I could. All right, so the next item is tendency to overcompensate.
He reminded me, now I was working at the time, he reminded me that I purchased some extravagant things. Okay. You know what? I didn't think anything of it. It's probably a thing. It probably is a thing.
Maybe. I felt a little uncomfortable because they were kind of they're fancy. It's fancy. And I wasn't used to someone being... My previous relationship didn't go like that. It was the other way around. They were supposed to get nice things. I didn't receive nice things. Someone didn't express themselves that way to me. And so it was new, it was different. And I realize now, like, lots of people do that. Like, it's a normal. And I try and dote upon Nora as best as I can and do nice things for her all the time. So
we both try to do that through our actions. But yeah, there were some extravagant things there, I think, in the beginning, but
they're nice. I like them.
But it says on the list that you do that, so I guess it's normal.
Right. Bummer.
What's the next one?
Okay. Then you trust him.
Then you trust him. Then you trust him. It's sorting through. Like I said, it's separating, okay, that's that joker over there, this person over here, these thoughts apply to that guy, these thoughts don't apply over here because he's never shown me any of that. Those don't apply to him because that's not who he is, that's not what he's shown me, he's never done those things to me. So it's a matter of sorting through all of that and things become clear and you start to reason. You're not ruled by your emotions and by all the negative crap that used to confuse you. So yeah, then you do finally come to trust based on that person's actions. I mean, if they give you something to distrust, that's one thing, but if they don't, you learn to separate those feelings.
Right, and that was something that, it was clear to me early on that Nora didn't trust me, even though I was her flight instructor for a while there. But we went to her therapist, early on we went together occasionally, and there was one day when we were talking, and I said, no, Nora doesn't trust me. I don't know what to do to make her trust me. And the therapist was shocked, I think a little bit surprised, and she looked at Nora and said, okay, I see that's the case. And she looked at me and I said, what do I do? You know, what do I do as a guy? How do I haven't changed. I've stayed the same way this whole time. And my therapist said, you do exactly what you're doing. Don't change anything. Stay steady. Stay consistent. And she looked at Nora and she says, then we're going to work on this. Now that was a long time ago. Kind of like this list that we came up with, that everything is our steps. It gets better. It's like, these are all phases, right? And that's an early phase, and then that phase passes, and those things aren't really issues anymore. You have new issues, but those old issues aren't there anymore. It's frustrating as the guy because you're like, well, I didn't do anything to cause her, and then I'm like, you know, maybe I'm gonna walk on eggshells here a little bit because I really don't want to do anything, full disclosure with everything in my life, so that there's no reason for her not to trust me. That's all you could do. And then eventually, that stops. The lack of trust stops, and there's full trust. Everything's fine, and then everything's wonderful. And it's okay.
And just to clarify, it wasn't like I was like flipping out or there weren't accusations or anything. No. But in our conversations, he knew that I wasn't sure. He knew that I was lacking that sense of 100%. Trust. Right. He knew I was lacking a sense of trust. And he could hear it and he could sense it and he wasn't sure why, and he just explained all of that. When I hear that now, when we discussed it, it makes me feel terrible. It really, really makes me feel awful that I ever made him feel that way, that I ever made him feel like he needed to prove himself or walk on eggshells or anything like that, because he truly has never, in all the time that I've known him, given me reason to not trust him, to not have faith in him, and the idea that all of that, you know, old BS and baggage comes along and does that to, you know, an innocent bystander, you know, and that's where all those feelings come from. Oh, you don't need this garbage, you're better off without me, blah, 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 because you know how much crap is stuffed in your head. You know that you're going to reflect that on people that have nothing to do with it, that don't deserve it. And that's where all those feelings come from. And if you can work through all of that and get through all of that, you're going to be way better off. But the process is, it's just that. It's a process.
And it's long. It doesn't happen right away.
No.
Last thing, you finally learn what real love is.
This was a doozy for me because I wake up grateful. I go to bed grateful. I just can't. It's now I'm like, oh, I know why people write songs and poetry and everything smells better and it's brighter. I get it now, and it's just amazing to me that this existed and I didn't have it. And now that I do, I'm just so incredibly grateful. I just never ever knew this give and take, and this is how it's supposed to be. And that's why I've just become so determined in doing this and in talking to everybody and sharing as much as I possibly can, opening my life completely, opening all the bad stuff and the good stuff completely, so that people understand that anything less than this is unacceptable. Right. Anybody treating you like a doormat, anybody playing mind games, anybody talking down to you and demeaning you and chiseling away at who you are is not acceptable. And so, yeah, when you find out what it's really like, you don't ever want to let that go. You don't ever want it to change. You don't ever want to lose it. I am just grateful. I'm so grateful.
I love you, baby.
I love you. I just feel awful when people reach out to me and tell me that they're still in it, that they're still dealing with it. You just have to leave. You have to leave. You can't deal with it. They're just horrible human beings. If you think they're going to change, you're wrong.
No, they're not going to change.
You're wrong.
Your partner in life should be lifting you up and supporting you, never bringing you down, and should be watching their words and the things that they say, because you care about each other. This was a change for me too. Our therapist one day, I told her, I said I was feeling all these things and I was going through all these emotions, and I felt uncomfortable about all this, and she said, this is what a normal relationship is like. It's supposed to be this way. It's supposed to be good like this. You know, the big message is, if you're, especially with a narcissist, it's not going to get better. It's not going to go away, and you have to get out. You just have to leave. It's really about choosing in your mind to basically draw a line and say, that's it. I'm not going to live my life like this anymore, and then start taking action. Because you can get out of it. You're never stuck. There's always options. So that's our story.
Thanks for watching.
See you next time.